Welcome to another episode of 0 to 60, and I've got another problem. Okay, so if you saw yesterday's video where I was fitting that Walbro 460, the main point of that video was basically just trying to dial in the fuel bias settings on the JB4 port injection controller. And that is sort of what I was focusing on those videos. When I was checking the logs, I did notice the boost was a bit lower than I thought it should be, but I didn't really pay any attention to that in the video. So after I edited the video last night, I went through and did a proper data log check and checked all the parameters that I could, and I've noticed a problem. My boost is not hitting target. In the upper end of the rev range, and I'll try and flash it up on the screen now, I'm nearly 4 to 5 PSI below what we're trying to target with the JB4, and you can also see that the wastegate duty cycle is right up in the 90s. So that implies that we have an issue. Now the things that can cause that, normally it's a boost leak, but it could also be the wastegate solenoids, or worst case scenario, it could be turbos wearing out and just not creating the boost that they're supposed to be creating. So in this video, we're going to try and work out what it is. Now there's 3 things that I'm going to do today and hopefully find the problem. First one is check the solenoids, which I'm going to do with these vacuum gauges. There's a bit of a trick you can do with the JB4 to manipulate the default wastegate position, and it should be visible on these. So that should show me if the solenoids are working. From there, I'm going to try a smoke test, which is another way, and I'll explain it when I get there, to see if there's any boost leaks. And then lastly, if the smoke test doesn't come up with anything, I will actually pressurize the system. Pressurizing the system, I don't really want to do, it's just a bit more work. So hopefully we find it in one of those first 2 steps. All right, let's get into it. So to do this test with my vacuum gauge, now these vacuum gauges, they're actually for balancing motorcycle carburetors. So we're only going to be using one of the gauges, and I've got it plumbed into the wastegate port just there, and it's actually this hose here that comes up to the T instead of this one being connected as per normal. Yeah, so basically that's going in there, and that's going to read the vacuum that is being sent to the wastegates, and I'll be able to see if the solenoids are working properly. Okay, so let's do the test. So hopefully you can hear me all right, but this is the gauge that I've got currently connected to the lines going down to the wastegates. Now, with the JB4, you have a setting called default wastegate position. That's currently at 76. So that's, I guess, essentially 70% of the max amount that I can, max amount of vacuum I can put on the wastegates. And of course, these wastegates close when they have full vacuum. So I'm going to change that to 99% there, and I'll resave it. Hopefully you can see both, and we'll see if I can pull back down closer to that 1 bar figure, which is 15 PSI. So we'll hit save, and that should write that modification to the JB4. And you can see there, it's pulled it down to about 9 bar. Now from memory, and I will flash up the calculations on the screen, but 9 bar should be getting close to, I think, 25 mercury inches, or however they measure it properly. And I'm just going to put it back down, but I think that is safe. So I'm getting the right amount of vacuum going to the wastegates. I'll just let that update again. Yeah. Okay, so the boost solenoids are working as they are intended. So the boost solenoids seem to be functioning as they should. It seems to be sending the correct amount of vacuum to the wastegates. So if the issue is turbo related from that point on, it is just a mechanical wear issue. I guess the next thing I've got to test is the smoke test. To do that, I'm going to pump smoke. I'll probably do it in 2 separate ones. I'll put smoke into the charge pipe here, and hopefully that'll get down into the hot side of the intercooler. And once I've done that and checked that side of the system, I will then also pump the smoke straight into one of the diverter valve ports. But to do that, I've got to take all this stuff off. So I'll get on with that. So I was just taking the engine cover off and the pods so I can plug these before doing the smoke test. And I don't know why I didn't just check it before, but there's my bloody problem. And I spent so long trying to align that, and it's just slid off. I've been doing it up so tight, it's actually tearing the silicon. So my problem, it's just slid off. My problem is being caused by this hose alignment. I I'd bet. And obviously the turbos can compensate for that boost leak up to a certain PSI, and then as the revs come up, they just can't make enough boost to sort it out. All right, I'm gonna align that again. I think I still might do a smoke test, because I actually just went and bought a smoke tester, a smoke generator. So I'll play with that alignment again, and you'll see me in a few seconds. We'll still do the smoke test. All right. Okay, so I've removed the pod filters, because they're obviously gonna be a leak spot, and I've just basically plugged them. Now, they're not plugged with anything that would hold any boost, but hopefully it'll be enough to keep the smoke inside the charge system. Now, obviously, I'm putting the smoke into the non-pressurized part of the system, so that's going to send the smoke over to the turbos and then hopefully around to the cooler. And we'll just see if we get any leaks. Something with the smoke test, they're not good for finding leaks like what this charge pipe is doing. It's only if you've like got a vacuum line off completely or an absolute hole in the system. Anyway, it's all sort of wired in, and when I say wired in, I mean bodged and taped. So we'll pump some smoke in and we'll see what we get out. Okay, so I'll just block that off for now. And I'm gonna actually blow it in. Okay, we can see it coming out of there, so it's not quite sealed on that bung. I wonder if you guys can see that. So if I blow through it, you can see it's leaking straight out of there, which isn't very good. Might have to put a hose clamp on that. Oh, it leaks out of my rear bung as well. Okay, I'm gonna put some clamps on these and we'll try it again. I'm just going to pop the oil cap off just to see in case anything's pressurizing over there. And you can see the smoke coming through the engine. So it's made it all the way through the PCV system, I guess. This still isn't sealing properly, but I have just got it wedged in the pod filter adapter. Just gonna pump another load of smoke into there. Basically all I'm doing is pumping the smoke in and then blowing it into the system manually. Let's see if we've got anything weeping out over this side. And we don't. But one of the negatives, or one of the issues with the smoke test, it only checks for basically fully open leaks. It won't work if it's sort of half sealed, which is what this charge pipe is. Okay, so the smoke test didn't actually help me with anything, but we have done one. And using that cheap universal smoke machine, it's actually worked all right. And now I have the smoke plugged into the charge side of the cooler, so hopefully this will get it into the intake manifold. Definitely make sure it's into the intake manifold, just in case we got something loose there. Now I have taken the bungs out of the... Sorry, I have taken the bungs out of the pod filters. So we'll just see how quickly the smoke does flow through. So it makes its way through the turbos pretty quickly. You can see that one. Not getting any smoke from around the intake manifold, it's just coming out of here. It's amazing how fast it works its way through the system. Nothing from any of the intercooler pipes. Ooh, oh no, it's coming out of there. Seems to be good. But yeah, it still doesn't pick up the leaky charge pipe. That seals enough that the smoke test doesn't work. All right, well, I'm going to spend a bit more time getting this aligned again and try and get this bloody hose clamp to sit on the charge pipe a bit better. And you'll see me again shortly when we do a test. GoPro stop recording. So I thought I'd share with you guys something that's just an absolute pain in the arse. If you've been following this build since we did the port injection, this hose kept popping off. Oh man, and I reckon I spent an hour the first time trying to align it. I've just been trying to align it again. Normally I'll align it on the lower piece down here, then I'll align it on the charge pipe and basically do everything up. But now we have stripped the T-clamp. So that's awesome. I love doing things that I shouldn't be doing. So you probably might not be able to see it, but I've just spaced the original nut up so the threads that just got destroyed by over tightening it are now not actually needing to be used at this point in time. But that is the 5th or 6th time I've tried to adjust that charge pipe silicon. We'll see if it holds this time. Yeah, okay, so I'll put the pod filter back on and I guess we're gonna take it for a drive. Something I didn't mention before, so one of the main reasons I didn't want to charge the entire system, I can't remember mentioned it earlier, but it would be easy for me to bung off the inlets and pressurize it from here. Now I know a lot of guys have done that, but I'm concerned about popping the inlets off the rear turbo and then that would just turn into another massive job. So if I was going to charge or pressurize the system, I would probably pressurize it here, and that was what I was thinking about doing, basically turning that around and then trying to bung that to pressurize the charge pipe, because obviously just fitting port injection I was concerned I was going to have a boost leak where that port injection rail and spacer plate goes in. However, the fact that that hose clamp was loose enough to just slide it off earlier, I'm guessing that's what it was, and I've probably thought I was tightening it up, but it must have been the threads grabbing or starting to damage last time I've done it. That's why it was loose. So hopefully that's the boost leak. I'm gonna get it all back together and you'll see me again in the car once I know it's all fixed. So I'm back and we did fix the boost leak, so that's a positive. I went and did some logs last night. I actually did about 4 or 5 logs. The first one I did, boost leak's fixed, everything's good, car was running great. However, there's a bit of a problem that I've had pop up a few times, and it's worse now. Now I'm getting full boost and I've got E70 in the car. It's a bigger problem. The problem is the 29DC fault code, which is basically fuel injector shutdown on one of these, and the DME will do that if there's, well, generally if there's a problem with the fuel system, which is normally a fuel pressure issue. Now I've had that code come up 3 or 4 times over the last 6 months, and it's always when I'm thrashing the car a little bit. I did manage to catch it in a log back in January, and basically the fuel pump dipped to, I think, 4 on the JB4 log, which is under 1,000 PSI, which is dangerous. The DME has seen that and gone, oh crap, stop pumping the fuel, and it shuts the cylinder off. So it's a fail-safe really for a failing component. Anyway, long story short, last night, obviously I'm running it on E70 now. I'm running MAP 7 and I've got correct MAP 7 boost, and it doesn't last long. I got that code twice last night. So the more ethanol content you run, the harder the high pressure fuel pump's running, and then the more likely this code is going to come up. The whole thing with the port injection, I was hoping it was going to alleviate the problem with this code, because obviously the port injection takes the stress off the high pressure fuel pump, but when you're under 15 PSI, the port injection is not really doing anything anyway, and this code comes up normally around 14.5 PSI at about 6,500 RPM, so my port injection concept's not fixed it anyway. So unfortunately, to do things properly, I really need to replace that pump. So I have ordered a genuine high pressure fuel pump today, which was mouth-wateringly expensive, but we're going to do things properly. And again, if I don't do it now, even though it's when I really beat on it at the moment that it plays up, it's going to be worse when I start winding the boost up and just thrashing it more, which is what I want to do with it. I want to enjoy it. And that was one of the few things I didn't have in my initial parts list getting ready for the hybrid turbos. I was being a bit hopeful. Anyway, look, I'll end this video here. Hopefully you've seen some logs on what's going on, but yeah, basically I've now got a high pressure fuel pump issue, which shouldn't be there. This is the original high pressure fuel pump from when this car was new. And if I'm getting an error or if it's playing up at 15 PSI, just not right. And they're a common problem. People have to replace these all the time. I have had a couple of long cranks with the car, which could be another sign of the high pressure fuel pump, but I think it's just I'm running a lot of E-content and beating on it a little bit too much. Anyway, look, thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions about smoke testing and all that sort of stuff, let me know below. If you're interested in knowing why increasing the ethanol content stresses that high pressure fuel pump more, let me know as well, because it's kind of interesting how the ethanol affects the way the O2 sensors work. All right, guys, really appreciate the views, really appreciate the comments. And I should have a high pressure fuel pump, so we'll be here on Monday and we'll have a video on fitting the high pressure fuel pump, hopefully out to you guys on Tuesday. We'll have a bit of an update on what's happening with the workshop here. Looks like we're going to be moving, but hopefully it'll allow us to make some more car content in the coming months. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.